And what if the greatest event in history had not been the flood, but what came after it? Imagine the world in complete silence. The waters that before roared are now still. The sky finally clean. No scream, no animal running, no city in the distance. Only the sound of the wind passing through a land that seemed to have been reset. After days, weeks, maybe months inside the ark, Noah steps again on the ground. But this was not the same world that he knew. Everything had changed. Everything had disappeared. The flood was not only a great inundation. It was a full stop, an abrupt closing of an entire era of humanity. And now, before Noah and his family, there was something even more frightening than destruction. The beginning again. Think about this for a moment. What is it like to wake up knowing that you and a few people are all that is left of humanity? Without cities, without neighbors, without living history around, only memories. Noah's first gesture when leaving the ark was not to build a house, nor to look for food. It was to raise an altar, a clear sign that he understood the weight of that moment. The world had been judged, but it had also been spared. Life continued, by divine choice. And then something extraordinary happens. God establishes a covenant, a promise that was not only for Noah, but for all living beings. The rainbow appears as a symbol that that type of destruction would never repeat itself in that way. It was not just a phenomenon in the sky, it was a silent message. Humanity would have another chance. But this new chance came accompanied by responsibilities. The relationship between the human being and the earth changes. The way of feeding changes. Fear begins to exist between animals and men. Creation before harmonic, now carried invisible scars of the judgment that had passed. The world after the flood was not a restored paradise. It was a wounded world, trying to learn to walk again. And the question that remains is unsettling. Did humanity really learn something from all that? Because even after a total destruction, the human heart continued being the same. In the next part we will talk about the first conflicts, the mysterious story of Noah after the flood and the error that changed the destiny of his own sons. The world had restarted, but not everything was at peace. With the passing of time, life began to sprout again. The trees grew, the animals multiplied, and the sons of Noah began to form new families. Humanity was reborn slowly, like a child learning to walk after a great fall. But it was precisely in this period of apparent tranquility that something unexpected happened. Noah, the righteous man. Noah, the survivor of the flood. Noah, the one who found grace before God. He was. The Bible reports that Noah became a farmer and planted a vineyard, a simple gesture, common, almost too human. But from that vineyard came wine, and from wine came drunkenness. For the first time since the flood, we see Noah vulnerable, exposed far from the image of an unshakable hero. This detail is powerful, because it shows that not even the chosen ones are immune to human weaknesses. During this moment, his son Ham sees the nakedness of his father. Instead of protecting, instead of covering, he exposes. He tells the brothers, he laughs perhaps, he judges perhaps. We do not know exactly his intentions, but we know the result. Shem and Japheth, the other sons, do the opposite. They walk backwards, cover the father and refuse to look at his shame. A simple gesture, but loaded with honor. When Noah awakens, he realizes what happened, and then something extremely serious is pronounced, a word that would cross generations, a blessing, and a curse. Ham is not directly cursed, but his son Canaan becomes the target of this declaration. A future of servitude is announced, a consequence that would echo far beyond that moment. influencing peoples, territories and conflicts that would arise centuries later. Here a difficult question arises. How does an apparently small error generate such great consequences? The answer is in what the episode reveals. It was not only about wine or nakedness, it was about respect, honor, limits and responsibility within the new humanity that was being born. The world had been destroyed because of human corruption. And now, right at the beginning of the restart, the same patterns were beginning to reappear. The human heart continued being tested. This episode reminds us of something deep. Surviving a judgment does not mean being transformed. True change demands more than deliverance. It demands character. And while Noah's family grew, another problem arose. A collective problem. An ambition that would unite everyone, and at the same time divide them forever. In the next part we will talk about one of the most mysterious and symbolic events of human history, the Tower of Babel, and how it shaped the world we know today. The world was populated again. The descendants of Noah spread out. But they still spoke the same language, shared the same customs, and walked together as a single humanity. And it was exactly this unity that gave rise to one of the most decisive moments in history. Instead of spreading over the earth, as they had been instructed, men did the opposite. They concentrated in a single place. They built a city, and in the center of this city, they had a bold idea, or perhaps dangerous. Let us build a tower that reaches the heavens. But this tower was not only a construction, it was a symbol, a monument to human self-sufficiency, a silent declaration of independence. The intention was not to worship God, it was to exalt themselves. It was to guarantee that they would never again be scattered, that they would never again lose control, that they would never again depend on something beyond their own strength. They wanted security without obedience, unity without humility, greatness without God. And this is the central point of the Tower of Babel. It was not the height of the tower that drew divine attention, it was the heart behind it. Humanity, recently out of a global judgment, was already again trying to occupy a place that did not belong to it. Then something surprising happens. God confuses the languages. Suddenly people who had always understood each other could no longer communicate. Familiar words lost their meaning. Orders generated confusion. Chaos settled where before there was unity. The construction stops. The project is abandoned, and the people spread over the earth. Babel was not only the birth of languages, it was the birth of nations, of cultures, of borders. The world as we know it began there. But there is something deep in this episode. God does not destroy the tower. He simply prevents human arrogance from advancing without limits. It was not an impulsive punishment, but a break, a way to protect humanity from itself. Because when the human being unites without moral limits, without humility and without direction, the result is never life, it is domination. The confusion of languages was not the end of humanity. It was a redirection, and while the people spread out, a question remained in the air. If everyone failed together, could someone do it differently? The answer begins to emerge soon after. Not with a great crowd, not with a powerful city, but with a single man. In the next part we will talk about the calling of Abraham, the beginning of a plan that would change history, and how God decided to work no longer with all humanity at once, but through a promise. After the confusion of Babel, humanity was scattered, different languages, different peoples, different paths. The world moved forward, but now fragmented. And it is in this scenario that something completely changes the way history begins to be conducted. God no longer chooses to work with everyone at the same time. He does something unexpected. He calls a man, without armies, without a city, without fame. Abraham, a common man, living in a common land, until hearing a voice that invited him to leave everything behind. His home, his security, his land, his certainties. In exchange, a promise that seemed impossible. From you I will make a great nation. But there was a problem. Abraham had no children, and his wife Sarah was barren. Everything in that promise went against human logic. Even so, Abraham obeys. This calling marks a new chapter after the flood. Until then, humanity had failed collectively. Now God begins a plan through relationship, faith and promise. No longer by force, no longer by fear, but by trust. Abraham errs, doubts, falls, but continues walking. And this is fundamental, because the world after the flood did not need perfect people. It needed people willing to listen, trust, and follow. From Abraham are born peoples, stories, conflicts, covenants, and promises that cross centuries. His son Isaac, his grandson Jacob, the 12 tribes, an entire lineage that would carry the hope of redemption. The flood had cleansed the earth, but it was the promise that began to transform the human heart. And here is the great revelation of this story. The world after the flood remained imperfect. Wars happened. Pride grew again. Errors were repeated. But for the first time, there was a thread of hope stitching history together. A powerful idea. Even when humanity fails, God does not give up. The flood was an end, but it was also a beginning. A reminder that new beginnings are possible, even after the greatest destruction imaginable. And now I ask you, if the world received a second chance, what are we doing with it today? If this content made you reflect, like the video, subscribe to the channel and continue this journey by watching the next video that is appearing for you now. Thank you for staying until here. We see each other in the next video.